Welcome back to another edition of Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about everything board game related. I am your host, Jeremy Salinas, aka Drakkenstrike, and today we will be reviewing the upcoming 2016 Gen Con release from Arcane, Wonders, the game Royals.
Yes.
To my right, back again, co-host and my board game frenemy, David Waybright.
Hello once again, everybody. Just want to take a moment, too, from both of us to thank you all for your positive feedback and some of your constructive criticism of our first video. We're going to be taking that to heart, improving things as we go. Hopefully you'll notice it getting better and better and better.
Hopefully we got it right. We got a brand new boom mic
We
here.
did. We spent some money to try to make things better.
And we have a camera right up here
Yes,
to
we
show
do.
you guys the game this time. So let's get this out of the way first. Let's talk about the logistics of the game. Royals is a re-release of a 2014 Essen released by Abacus Spiel.
Yes.
Which is an actual re-implementation of a Z-Man game called Heads of State.
Yeah, Heads of State.
So it is a 2 to 5 player area control game that plays very quickly, 60 minutes in and out for the most part once you've learned the rules. So in Royals, players are leaders of the great noble houses of 17th century Western Europe who are fighting for control by placing their family members in influential positions in each of the 4 different countries that are on the game board. So you have Spain, France, Britain, and Germany. Right. So in the various cities of each of these countries, there are 1 or 2 nobles available. The smallest country of which is England, or Britain, with 6 offices in 3 different cities, and the largest being
France. France has 9 offices and 5 different cities? Yeah, 5.
And so each of these different cities has a very particular noble associated with it, which is also represented by these cards that you see off to the left-hand side of the board. In ascending order, you have the king, the princess, the cardinal, the duke, the countess, the baron, and the marshal, which are each worth increasing number of victory points should you claim them as an area majority at the end of the game. There's also the family members in the game, which are represented by your tokens, and you have cards.
Cards. The cards are going to be a combination of 2 things. You're going to have your country cards, and there's yellow for Spain, red for Britain, so on and so forth. Then there's also intrigue cards. This is where the game gets a little nastier.
Yeah.
You use the intrigue cards in combination with the country cards to sort of bump and grind on the board a little bit. You're going to be
a little bit of killing there.
A little bit of assassination going on once the board starts to fill up.
Right. So the game's played over 3 rounds. During a round, you will have a mandatory phase of the game in which you are drawing a combination of either country cards or a single country card and 1 intrigue card. And then comes the optional portion of the game, where you can play as many cards as you so wish in order to claim vacant cities on the board or to assassinate occupied cities on the board.
Exactly. So for instance, say I had this hand. If I chose to, I could play 2 French cards to effectively take the Baron position in Dijon, and I would put one of my pieces on the Baron, and the 2 cards correlate to the 2 cards required to take the spot. I would take another piece and put it over on the Baron card for end of game scoring.
So anytime you go to a location, you're always placing 1 cube on that particular city and 1 onto the noble office that you're going to.
Right.
Now, this is a victory point game. Everything you see on the board itself are chits that give you victory points. Once they're gone off the board, they're gone. They don't get replenished from round to round.
Yeah, the easiest points to score, too, are the city points. It's the quickest way to score points. The first person to go in Dijon, for instance, if this is still available, you'd take the scoring chit, place it down, face down in front of you. That's gone for the rest of the game.
Right.
No one else is getting that scoring point. So at the beginning of the game, you'll find people just running from city to city, trying to grab some of those early points.
Right. So this is a game about jockeying for position, choosing your short-term goals over your long-term goals, and making changes as the game fluctuates, trying to get into positions that you weren't ready to do, or well, tell us.
Yeah.
Tell us. I mean, what are you trying to do at the beginning?
I mean,
go for cities.
Yeah, at its core, it's area control, and you're going to be going for cities to grab those points.
Right.
You can grab those points with either of the 2 noble offices in that city.
Right.
But then a little bit longer term, you're going to want to be going after these country points.
Which are the shields.
The shields. And to do that, you need one of your player pieces, one of your family members, in each of the offices. Now, it can be the top or the bottom, but it has to have one in each of those cities, and we'll explain this in a second. You can even be in the cathedral here. And
how do you get in the cathedral?
How do you get in the cathedral?
This is
you
the
ask.
fun part.
This is where things get a little nasty. So
as we said, there's an optional phase to the game. Either you can play your cards, as he just said, to go into a vacant location. Now, if you want to go into a location that's not vacant, say I had those same combination of cards that he had on the previous turn, and I want to go to that Baron in Dijon, what would happen?
So Jeremy could play, again, the required 2 France cards to go into that position, but he would also need an intrigue card that has the France shield as well. When he does that, he would place his piece. It would push me to the cathedral, and then he would put his other piece, as always, on the Baron card for end-of-game scoring.
So the game has this weird progression mechanism to it. It's not weird. It's good. It's really smart. The game ramps up quickly, right?
Yeah.
You're first going for cities, for the most part, trying to establish dominance in those areas. As the game progresses, you're trying to gather more areas in those cities in order to gain the shields. Now, when the round ends, like we said, 3 rounds, the round ends when the deck of cards is depleted.
Right. As soon as this deck is done,
right,
the round ends.
And
There's
then
no
we go
finishing.
and then we go to a scoring phase.
Yeah, the
and
scoring
this is
phase,
where the area majority comes into play.
Yeah, if you notice too, earlier when we were pointing out the board, all of the offices have the scroll next to them. That designates their influence in the country. So at the end of the round, if you're scoring France, you would add up the influence for all of the offices that you control. So for instance, if I had the princess here and the baron here, I would have 3 influence. And say Jeremy was up here and had the king and had 4. Well, Jeremy would be first place, so he would take the first place chit. I would be second place, so I would take second place. And there are some mechanisms in the game for breaking ties and whatnot.
Yeah. So that's scoring number 3. The other scoring mechanism that is during the gameplay is by getting your family members on each of the different offices that you see here on the left-hand side.
Right.
Now, just to make a note, each of these office people are correlated by the same picture that's on the board. So a cardinal here and a cardinal here still represents the cardinal that you see here off to the side.
Right.
So the first person to get 1 on every single one of these cubes on the left-hand side, no offices on the side, gets the token over here on the left-hand side.
Yeah, you get the highest token left.
Right.
And that those tokens, depending on the player count, there's fewer of those, but you're basically taking the highest token left. So you don't want to be the guy at the end of the game who never did that or did it last.
Yeah, exactly.
Because those are some pretty big points to grab over there.
Yeah. The progression of the game, as we said, it naturally gets nastier and nastier as players start to find out that the areas on the board are all occupied by people. Right. So the first round, as we said, it's simply going out there, establishing areas. Second round
gets a little nastier.
A little bit different.
By the end of the second round, you're going to see some situations where you're going to be bumping people. You're going to be assassinating people. And then, in the third round, it's a bloodbath.
It's a bloodbath. It's all death, all mayhem, trying to push people into those cathedrals so you can gain influence in those areas and get the points at the end of the game.
I will say, for those of you who don't like that, like a lot of conflict, I'm right there with you. I don't like a lot of conflict in my games. However, the progression we just talked about, where the game kind of eases you into the conflict a little bit. The first round, there's not a lot of conflict. The second round, it's introduced, so you get the feel for it. The third round, you better be ready for some conflict because people are going to be killing off
and it
left
fits
and right.
the game, though. I mean, it really does fit the theme of the game.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel unwarranted or unneeded for the game design itself. Which gets us into the pros and cons of the game. What did you really, really enjoy about the game?
Well, my favorite part of it is, like I've said, I'm not exactly a fan of area control. However, this is my favorite area control game.
You guys heard it here first. Not an area control guy, right?
I'm not. It kind of goes hand in hand with my, the way I look at conflict. Area control almost always
it's total conflict.
Includes conflict.
Yeah,
what I like about this is the elegance and simplicity of the mechanics. It almost has a Ticket to Ride-y sort of feel in terms of collecting these sets of colored cards.
It does.
Then using them. So it's easy to play, but the depth comes in with the scoring. That I love.
Right.
The conflict generally I don't like, but in this game I actually kind of like how it kind of eases you into it. you're ready for it, and you know it's coming, and then it just intensifies and intensifies, and by the end of the game, everyone's used to the fact that, okay, this is what's happening.
Right.
We're knocking each other around.
I agree. It plays quickly in about an hour. There's not a whole lot of downtime between turns.
Nope.
Artwork is fantastic.
Oh, it's a beautiful game.
We weren't privy to the previous version at Essen. This is our first contact with the game, but we have gone online and looked, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the other game. The components look similar, but the artwork, the improvements they've made are just perfect.
Yeah, they fit well. The thing I really liked about the game, and we've noted this already, there's this ramping up of the game that you are constantly trying to figure out what to do, when to do it, and you have the option as the game moves on to kind of maneuver your strategy as other people are taking locations from you that you don't want to take. But it's really a rat race at the beginning to collect cities, and then it's a rat race to kill everybody as quickly as possible to gain dominance in those areas.
It's an adjustment. And one thing, too, I want to point out about that progression of the game. Early in the game, if you find yourself with a hand of cards, because like we've said, you don't have to play cards on your turn. So if you don't have exactly anything you can do on the board, you might earlier in the game want to choose to take one country card, one intrigue card,
to build up.
Save it for later. Because in that last round, if you don't have any intrigue cards,
you're done.
You're done.
There's nowhere to go.
You have to have
any vacant offices by then.
Right. You have to have. It's nice to have a little bit of a supply saved up for that last round, because then you don't have to waste your turn doing that.
Yeah. Cons for the game. We have not played it as a 2-player game. We've played it as a 3 and a 4. As most of you guys know who are board game connoisseurs, area control games just don't really fit. Most area control games don't really fit well in a 2-player setting. Now, we haven't played it. We don't know how that would work, but I can't possibly see this game being highly enjoyable as a 2-player game.
I feel it falls into that same boat. It would be just way too empty and open. There would be some conflict, but at the very end, this is where you'd see the conflict, unless you were just a couple of jerks playing with each other.
And David was talking. The other thing was the theme. The theme fits, as you told me earlier before this. It fits well. Everything makes sense, but this could be anything. We played this game a couple times now, and every time I pull one of these lion red cards, I call it a Lannister, because it could be Game of Thrones, right?
It absolutely.
For most people, I played as a Game of Thrones game because it's so cutthroat at the end, right? Everyone dies, right?
Everyone dies. It's absolutely like Jeremy said. The theme fits. It works, but other themes could fit and work as well. It works really well. I hesitate to even say that it's a con, but like many games, the theme is kind of not an afterthought, but it's not exactly built around it.
There's a lot of conflict, again, for you guys that don't like conflict.
There is conflict, but it's like I said, I don't like it, but it's palatable in this game for sure. And
the last thing I wanted to mention was the luck factor. I like my games with some luck, but I also like the mitigation of luck. You find that a lot in some dice games like, I think I have Grand Austria over here right now. There's some mitigation of dice with the luck and what you draw, what you're rolling. This game doesn't have a whole lot of mitigation. I don't even think it really has any. There is an alternate to be able to have a 4th card available to draw from, so you're seeing more cards. But there's turns when people draw 3 of the exact same cards, and that's exactly what they're looking for. And
I wouldn't classify the game as a luck fest.
Not at all.
But that every time 3 blue cards come up, and it's Jeremy's turn, and he's wanting blue cards, I can't help feel that he just lucked out. So it does kind of come up every once in a while. But what comes around goes around. Same thing happens for you. So it's there. And I actually do like a little bit of luck in my games. I like the excitement that luck brings. I do like to be able to mitigate it, but I would say it's a valid point, but not a game. Not a deal breaker by any means. Not a deal breaker.
Which gets us to our recommendation. What do you think? Is this something you'd recommend?
I would recommend it. This game for me, I introduce games to a lot of people a lot of times, new games, new groups, and then we move on to the next game. This is a perfect game for that. I would call it a gateway.
Absolutely.
Gateway area control game. If you know people who haven't liked area control, I'd say the takeaway from my perspective, you could try this out on them. You could try it yourself if you feel you're that same way, because there's some simplicity and some elegance to this game that really drew me in.
It's a great game. I would definitely play this anytime. For me, I am more of a complex, heavy gamer. As you see on the table around you, that's why I brought some of these games with us. Mombasa, Blood Rage, Eclipse, and probably my all-time favorite area control game, Twa. These are more of the style of games that fit my personality. I like the heavier games, the more decisions that you have to make. There are definitely decisions to make in here. But they're kind of determined by the cards that you're drawing from turn to turn.
I think the simplicity takes away from a little of that heaviness that you like.
Yeah, that I enjoy.
Obviously.
Would I recommend it? Absolutely. It is fantastic. It's got great production values, great components. It plays very easy to teach. It is more on the gateway side, but it's something that I would highly recommend to anybody to play.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, that's Royals. Check it out at Gen Con 2016. I am Jeremy Salinas.
I'm David Waybright.
And we'll see you on the flip side, guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.